Good morning and welcome to the show to be named later here on KCOU 88.1 FM. Mizzou last night, really I think it can be described as they shot themselves in the foot. They missed a bunch of free throws. They didn't make a basket the entire overtime. For those who didn't see the game, Mizzou is down for a good portion of that game. They're down 13 in the second half, managed to come back. Seemed like they had to have a decent shot at winning.
Not really a game that Missouri, a tournament team vying for postseason position, should give away. And, you mentioned it, free throws were the main problem. Offense seemed to stalled out. But I don't want to focus on the negatives for a little while. I want to focus on two positives that I saw. One was the amount of double-digit scores for Missouri. They had 6 different players in double-digit scoring. That's an outstanding offensive distribution. And if they can keep that up, they're going to be in a really, really good shape.
You see standings. There's 4 teams at 8 and 7, Mizzou being included in that. And there's 2 teams at 8 and 6. So a couple wins in a row, and they could be back in third place. That just shows you, like we've talked about all year long, the parity in the SEC. There's not really a good team, but there's also not really a bad team, as we saw last night with arguably one of the worst teams in the SEC, Ole Miss, knocking off the Missouri Tigers.
That just a story that developed last night. The Dallas Mavericks in NBA, a story out of Sports Illustrated, well worth your time if you haven't gotten a chance. Talking about workplace culture, several issues there in terms of sexual harassment, domestic violence. Make it clear that it's on the business side of the basketball operation, not the basketball side of the operation, but certainly one that is now leading to an internal investigation by the Mavericks. They've hired an outside law firm. Certainly could lead to some sort of league punishment, as the league will certainly be investigating this. And a story that has caught a lot of attention of eyes everywhere, not just in the sports world, but in the world that we live in now. It's certainly a lot of attention placed on this. And the details are frankly horrifying when you read what is at least being alleged took place for many years in that front office. And Garrett, I know you had the chance to read the story, and obviously just your initial reaction to what you read.
Well, I think the first thing you consider is hopefully for the victim's sake that they get the help that they need, that hopefully the stories are overblown. And I hope that ultimately they recover okay. What I did like was Mark Cuban's response. He's a guy who's never been afraid to say what's on his mind. He doesn't often mince words, and he came out and full-fledged objected everything that happened in here. He had no knowing of it, and oftentimes, unfortunately, that gets a little hazy, and we'll have to see how that plays out. But as you mentioned, they hired an outside law firm, and obviously you just hope that the allegations are obviously untrue, but unfortunately, if there's an expose like this coming, then that's probably not the case. But ultimately, the thing that we need to focus on here is make sure the victims get the help that they need. And it's just really...
Also, I think here, too, it goes back to what a lot of times we see in college sports when we see, all sorts of different scandals that have erupted in college over the last few years, and we see a coach say, I had no clue. Right? We saw that with Rick Pitino in Louisville. I had no idea. Well, okay, you had no idea, but you are the head of that program, right? You are responsible from overseeing, and the NCAA created a thing called lack of institutional control, where a coach can still get in trouble. That cannot be an excuse, and maybe Mark Cuban didn't know, but the fact of the matter is you probably should have known, right?
He's a passionate Atlanta Braves fan. He's a sophomore at the Missouri School of Journalism. He is the sports editor at the Man-Eater. He is the one, the only Joe Noser. Thanks for coming on into it. Joe, that was a real stinker last night. Any initial thoughts, reactions after that 90-87 loss in the hands of the Ole Miss Rebels last night for the Tigers?
Well, I'll tell you, this team has been nothing short of a carousel this year, and they just continue to go back and forth. You think back to when the team went on a 3-game losing streak in January. And there's lots of talk, is this team going to make the NIT? I mean, the NCAA tournament seemed out in left field, which is sort of classic Missouri fans, and then I think it's sort of a fan base that tends to overreact every now and then, which is understandable considering its history. But then the team rattled off 5 straight wins. And suddenly the conversation was not, where has this team come from? It's how far can this team go? And now suddenly they look very mortal again. And last night, I think, was a really good example of that. There's lots of talk about how they missed 11 free throws, and that's what cost them the game. But I think the 21 turnovers really tells the whole story. Despite scoring 87 points, the team looked out of sync on offense the entire night, which is impressive to score 87 and still look that bad offensively. But at the same time, Ole Miss is not a good basketball team. They hadn't won since January 23rd. Their coach had just stepped down. That's a game that you just absolutely have to have. But by the same token, it's a quadrant 3 loss. They're now 6-2 in such games. It's a bad loss. It's not going to knock them out of the tournament.
Joe, when you look at it, it seems like there are reoccurring issues, whether it be turnovers, whether it be free throws. It seems like the same issues come back to bite Missouri in the games that they lose, and even sometimes in the games that they win, they seem to have these same issues. Is there any way to fix this, or is it we're at a point now this late in the year where it's going to be what it's going to be the rest of the way, and Missouri's just going to have to try to fight through their problems?
On the free throws, it really hasn't been a problem all year except for these last 2 games. I mean, going into the Mississippi State game, the LSU game that they lost when they went 7-17 from the free throw line, they were a 75% free throw shooting team, across the board, and that's with a Jeremiah Tillman and a Reed Nico and occasionally a Jonte Porter consistently getting to the line. So this is not a bad team from the free throw line. They've just looked atrocious the last couple of games. That's the kind of thing that they get a little bit of time in between games, and they get a ton of free throw shots up, and then they make some big ones in key moments. I think won't be a recurring issue. The turnovers may be a different story. I think the one thing that they can figure out how to do is just inbound the ball, but they just continue to show an inability to figure that out, which frankly bewilders me. Konzo Martin said after, I think it was the Mississippi State game, he said, you just have to find a way to inbound the ball. And he said, if it's me, you're not going to stop me from getting the basketball. So I think Coach Martin looks at it as more of a intensity thing on the part of his guys. But that coaching staff needs to get creative at this point because the team has plenty of intensity. They just cannot get it done on inbounds.
Yeah, and Joe, thank you for coming on the show again. Like Garrett said, we really appreciate it. And, last night, there was a lot of hate on Jordan Geist after the game. And I personally thought Jordan Geist played pretty well other than the last shot at the end, which is really tough because there wasn't a whole lot open and he had to get a shot up within the last couple seconds. How did you think he played last night?
Well, Jordan Geist, his performance has improved significantly since earlier in the year. He certainly matured into that point guard role. I think the problem with Geist is he's shown sort of an inability to get it done late in the game over and over again. Sort of the pressure of the moment can sort of cause him to clamp up and not play his game. One thing that I thought really reinforced that was about 15 seconds to go. Missouri got the ball out in transition, and Geist just sort of went full Russell Westbrook and drove the ball into the lane with 3 defenders collapsing on him and didn't bother to look out to the wing where he had a wide-open Jordan Barnett in the corner. And that's a great shot for Missouri if you can get it out to him. Coach Martin said after the game that he had wished that sort of Jordan had taken a jump step there and then looked to either lay the ball up or pass out. Another example I saw was on a 4-on-1 fast break in which Jeremiah Tillman got fouled and eventually missed both free throws. Obviously, you can't blame Geist for his teammates' failure at the free throw line, but these are just the kind of things that a good point guard should be able to. You should be able to get points.
Our next segment is the weirdest thing that we saw in sports this week.
So basically, this dude had 3 sausages in his hands. He was about 15 yards away from these 3 cups of pudding lined up, and he took one sausage and flung it and knocked all 3 of them down on his first throw, and he won a competition in England.
As we get into get it off your chest, as what is bothering us in the world of sports, I guess I will start it off. For me, and Chase, you were just mentioning the Olympics in our last segment. To me, it's like how many people, especially in the United States, but I assume it's across the world, tune into the Olympics when they don't tune into other sports. It's like people feel compelled for this reason, and maybe because it's a sense of pride, a sense of country, to watch the Olympics. And it's like every night we are going to watch the Olympics, even if I'm not really into sports, not into the games, I don't particularly understand what's going on. I'm going to make an attempt to watch it, and I'm going to attempt to like it. Fine. I fully support that. But to me, maybe you should try to watch a few more sporting events. Maybe you should see what sports you may or may not like. And I'm not saying you have to watch it all the time or that you have to like it. But it kind of bothers me that people give this chance to the Olympics when they don't give this chance to other sports.
49 of 250 laps, but I have a significant problem with the way that the race ended. And this is just an encapsulation of the direction that the sport, or whatever you want to call it, I understand if you don't think it's a sport. I think it is, just because the umbrella term, but that's another debate. 249 and 250 laps were great. It was the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl in NASCAR, but the last lap encapsulated the current direction of the sport under Brian France, who's the current highest executive of NASCAR. The sport has been maimed and made into a WWE style, not to bag on WWE, but a WWE style entertainment facade. It's no longer a competition. They've made rule changes to adhere for big wrecks and try to encapsulate a big audience that is opposite its fan base. Why do people want to tune in for NASCAR? The casual fans, they want to see wrecks. Well, we saw more wrecks than ever in the Daytona 500. Only 19 cars finished in the race out of 40. That's pathetic. More cars wrecked than finished. They can't have that. That's not the sport. That's not the design. The design is to have the best racing possible.
You know, poor Garrett Jones up on the Jumbotron last night, and he looked frozen like a little statue, but it's okay, Garrett. We still love you.
I mean, I'm kind of flattered, honestly, that